Boarding off this new week of the SportsMax Zone with cricket, many fans' surreal feelings were doused with reality when Cricket West Indies officially introduced Roston Chase as the regional side's newest captain in the longest format during a virtual press conference earlier on Monday. CWI confirmed the news Friday afternoon on social media. The same day, the governing body launched the Caribbean side's Summer Home Series. Now, Director of Cricket Miles Bascom shed light on the quest to find Craig Brathwaite's replacement.
Process included psychometric evaluations. That is after a number of players were shortlisted. So they underwent psychometric evaluations and then a very robust interview process that was used to then do a final assessment across a set of weighted criteria that eventually gave to us our recommendations for captain and vice captain. I'm quite happy with this process. It was time consuming. However, I think it was quite necessary, both to give the candidates the best chance, of representing themselves. The panel that did the interviews would have included myself, the head coach, and the chair of our cricket and officiating committee.
All right, meanwhile, Coach Darren Sammy says he's ready to work alongside the new Test captain to return the Caribbean side to consistent, competitive state.
We'll be entering our Test championship that takes us to, I think, 2027. One of the goals I've outlined to the director is putting us in a place where we could actually win the 2029 Test championships. To me, that is something that is realistic. However, over the next, we have those 8 Test matches to December, is creating an environment where we could, all the roles that we have identified, we could actually go and execute those roles with the personnel that we're going to have.
Yeah, and 33-year-old Chase acknowledged there is much work for West Indies to do, but insists he's ready for the challenge.
It's about the process, trusting the process, whatever the plans and the tactics have been put in place, trying to carry out that to the best of your ability. And for me, it's just for the guys to go out there and show the effort and show the determination and that grit that Test cricket requires for you to excel. So I'm just looking for that. Once the guys go out there and give their all and try their best and play some proper cricket, whatever the results may be at the end of the day, I'll be happy with that. Once the guys are moving together and gelling together and working together to achieve one goal, that's all I can ask for.
The newly appointed West Indies Test captain there, Roston Chase. All right, well, if Azir Mohammed is the SportsMax captain, then Nikhil Uttamchandani must be the vice captain, and he steps into the hot seat today. Nikhil, as usual, it is a pleasure to have you on the SportsMax Zone. Before I even put the first question to you, Nikhil, I just want to say, because I think there is a misconception that I am not a fan of Roston Chase, and I want to, put it out there, what I've always said. I've always said that I feel that Roston Chase's best format is the longest format of the game, and that's Test cricket. That's where I've always wanted to see him. So I am quite happy that he is back into the Test setup, even at 33 years old, and I have no issues with him being Test captain, as I said last week. But you're the man here to analyze, Nikhil. And first of all, we haven't gotten your take just yet since Chase was named the new Test captain. What do you make of the selection?
Well, I was going to start the show by saying, Ricardo, Roston Chase stocks went up through the roof ever since you challenged his place in the T20 side. So I think he needs to tell you a personal thank you because Ricardo has played a massive part in the success of Roston Chase. But no, I want to say, first of all, it was an initial surprise to me, like it was to many others, and that's not because of the ability of Roston Chase, who's got 5 Test hundreds and 4 5-wicket hauls at the Test level. but more because it's been 26 months with him out of the Test team. He openly admitted today in his unveiling that he spent the last 2 years trying to focus on his franchise deal and trying to get more opportunities around the world playing white ball cricket. So I think it's refreshing. I always think, when I think back to some of the best moments of the last decade in Test cricket, Chase is included in a lot of them. 2017 against India at Sabina Park, 2019 against England where he got 8 for 60. He brings a much-needed balance to the West Indies, who have been deficient in quality all-rounders. The key, though, for Darren Sammy is going to be to get Roston Chase back to his best, because let's not forget, 3 of those 500s came in his first 10 Test matches, and there's been 37 innings without 100 for Chase. So now Sammy's got to get him to his best, but also has to do it with the pressure and burden of captaincy. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to see how the next maybe 24 months look like. But I think tactically, looking at the candidates, he was probably the most experienced.
Yeah. It's interesting you pointed out that press conference today where he made mention of trying to focus on white ball deals in the last 2 years. He also said in that press conference that the previous head coach, Andre Kohli, had approached him to return to the Test side, and he told him at the time that he was not ready, obviously, to focus. But he also said something that caught my attention, Nikhil, that he's been doing more bowling than batting in the last 2 years. And I wonder how or what that means for his return to the West Indies Test setup.
Yeah, it was interesting. And I think when you look at his place in T20 teams around the world, the West Indies is a perfect example, where often he will bowl 4 overs and not really always bat, depending on the situation. So I think that's probably where that comment came from. But look, if I think about Roston Chase, who's got 11 first-class hundreds in our 4-day system and obviously Test cricket, he's got enough quality. He's shown us at the highest level against the very best that he's good enough. The big question for him will be, how can he translate some of that 4-day form? Because earlier this year, again, I think it was against CCC for Barbados, he got 5 and scored 100 in the same 4-day game. So how can he then translate that form back to the highest level? Because look, I think teams have found a way to dismiss him. Teams have worked him out over the years. And he plays a critical part now in that batting lineup, given that he's going to be captaining this team. I know in the past, it was flirted with the idea of him batting 7 and 8 and playing as a specialist bowler. But I don't see that in this West Indies team. He has to bat probably 5, maybe 6 the lowest, which means that they're going to need a heavy responsibility and a big volume of runs from him.
Yeah, a lot will be riding on his personal performances if this Test team is to go on to do well. Can you talk to me, though, about the bunch of players, Nikhil, that he will be tasked to work with? Because at the top of the show, all 3 of us were discussing, Roston Chase's appointment. And one of the things Ricardo would have mentioned is the egos within the team. And, it looks like it will be an easier bunch for him to go about his duty. What's your take? Because you're very close to the setup.
Yeah, I heard Ricardo in his opening statement. I think that's pretty accurate, just given that it's almost like a new start for everyone. And I think even to have a brand new coach will take some pressure off Roston Chase and maybe give him a bit more flexibility into the brand, the identity that he wants from his Test team. He's not been one of the most extroverted guys when I see him around setups. So I'm quite curious to see how this leadership position impacts him. When I think back about the times he's led, it's been 2019 and 2020 in a team series against New Zealand and India, and then the Nepal series earlier this year. But he has been around a lot of leaders, and from what I understand, speaking to a few former West Indies captains, he has always been in the decision-making panel on the field and in important moments and matches. So I think he's got all the tactical nous to be able to do this job, but the personality is what I want to see, because given what we've seen in recent past from this West Indies side, we know that there will be many trials and tribulations. How is he and Darren Sammy, who will be under pressure as an all-format coach, be able to handle that?
Yeah, and what's for sure, Nikhil, is he has received, public support from Darren Sammy. Of course, Darren Sammy was a part of the process in selecting Roston Chase. So I think, that marriage with both of them, of course, wanting to do great things, first time leading this setup as well. I think that's a good sign. That's a good sign for both of them to be on the same page to ensure that the rest of the players, all the plans and goals are translated to the rest of the players. Because one of the things I notice whenever Darren Sammy talks, he speaks about creating an environment, and he uses the term players and their roles. And, he's done that when he spoke about the T20 players, acknowledging their role in a setup and ensuring that they live up to the full potential of that role.
Yeah, Maria, when I read the press releases and Darren Sammy's comments, he keeps talking about wanting to put oppositions under pressure, play a bit more attacking style of cricket in the test format, because when we talk about the West Indies, they're always at the bottom of the pack when it comes to scoring. They're, I think, 2 runs and over in the last 3 years, which is the worst of the Big 8. So obviously he said that. He said we want to be more attacking, we want to be more aggressive. But does he have the players, one, to be able to carry out that skill? And then the players that are able to execute that skill at the 4-day level, do they have enough bravery and skill to be able to execute at the test level, where the bowling goes up a few notches and you're playing against some of the best in the world? I mean, this Australia attack, that even if it's not the Hazlewoods, the Starks, and it's maybe a Scott Boland and maybe a Lance Morris, they will still immensely challenge these West Indian batters. So I'm quite eager to see if this attacking brand that Darren Sammy keeps talking about is sustainable, and time will tell.
Yeah, Nikhil, can you say if there is any truth to information I've gleaned that Darren Sammy was pretty keen in having Shai Hope as the test captain, but the information we have is that Shai was advised to not take that job on?
Well, I haven't heard directly from any source, Lance, but if I think back to a few interviews with Darren Sammy and his communication around Shai Hope in the past, I think one of the reasons why Shai Hope was given the T20 international captaincy is his responsiveness to data and just how he's been able to carry out the data-driven planning that the West Indies have set out in the one-day format. So I can understand why there was an intrigue by Sammy and his team to have Shai Hope at the helm, but I do think there was always a risk associated, and there's a risk associated with Chase as well. But to bring Shai Hope back into Test cricket as a captain, someone who hasn't played in a while, I think more than 3 years or 4 years, it would have been a huge risk. And I think Darren Sammy could have been almost his job on the line had that decision not gone the right way, and if the West Indies were to have a few losses. I think the Roston Chase appointment, because he's played for South cricket consistently for the last 3 years, we've seen what he's capable of doing at the Test level, and probably as of right now, still merits a place in the best West Indies Test team because of his all-round presence. I think for those reasons, this was the safer option for Darren Sammy.
And what are your thoughts on Craig Brathwaite endorsing Roston Chase as the captain, using words like his character and quiet strength, and being behind him 100%?
Yeah, no surprise there, Lance. I think these two obviously have played cricket for a long time together. Similar age, played at the under-19 level in Barbados. Obviously, then we spent time in the West Indies Test team. So yeah, I'm all for that. I think Craig Brathwaite naturally would endorse the next leader because he's still a part of the Test team. And what I want to see is how much does Roston Chase lean on a Craig Brathwaite on the field. Darren Sammy keeps talking about using the word leadership as opposed to captaincy because of the individuals and wanting to have a buy-in from multiple individuals. Well, is Craig Brathwaite one, even though he's a former captain? Is he still part of that leadership role, given his experience and also what he's achieved in maybe the last 2 to 3 Test series?
And physically on the field of play and what he has to offer both with the bat and the ball, I know that his bowling stats are pretty moderate in Test cricket. His batting stats are a little bit better. But how do you see him executing his role as an all-rounder? And do you think there will be more of a dependency on him with a bat, given the fact that we have established, Ricardo said it at the top of the show, that batting is more of a problem in this West Indies team than is the bowling?
There has to be, Lance. There has to be more responsibility on his batting. And that's because when I look at the West Indian attack, and I think about, even when I look at the West Indian 11, it is the batting that has let them down time and time again. And I think obviously Chase plays a critical role when you go maybe overseas and you play just the one spinner, which is probably why I'm surprised by the Warrican selection as vice captain. But when I think about a combination of the West Indies where they've got maybe the chance to play 1 or 2 other spinners, Chase's batting in all conditions will be integral. And for him to bat in the top 6, he can't average 26. He's got to get more runs than that consistently. I always think captaincy can go one of two ways. It can either obviously be a huge burden and pressure, but it can also free up a player. You can remember that when Chase was coming to the end of the 2023, the last time he played Test cricket, there was immense expectation and pressure on him to perform, and maybe that played a part against him. So maybe with this captaincy now, knowing that he's got a long tenure, these 8 Test matches, plus to be in the team, maybe this now brings the best out of Roston Chase. When we saw him in his first 10 Tests, he was fearless. He fought for the West Indies, he was fearless, and he sort of knew that he had nothing to lose and much to gain. So hopefully that will be the same scenario now.
Yeah, well, Nikhil, you know, hopefully Roston Chase's second coming will be like the second coming of Kyle Hooper. When he came out of retirement, it was then, was averaging 33 at the time, and the second time round averaging the 40s, and played some marvellous knocks for the West Indies. Hopefully we'll get something similar from Roston Chase. As usual, Nikhil, thanks very much for joining us on the SportsMax Zone.
Hopefully his second coming will be like yours, Ricardo, in your new position, because your research has gone up a few notches.
No, I was just around. You're a little bit too young to remember. By the way, Lance and Mariah, just quickly, you asked a question about Shai Hope and declining the opportunity. Darren Sammy did speak specifically to that at the press conference today. He did say that Shai Hope was approached to be among the final 6 or one of those interviewed for the position of captaincy, and he declined that. So it is not a situation where Hope was offered the West Indies Test captaincy. He was offered an opportunity to vie for the position like the other players who were interviewed, and Darren Sammy wanted to make it pretty clear that that is what he declined. In fact, I think Sammy went as far as to say that he understands it would have been difficult for Shai Hope, especially given the current climate of West Indies cricket, for him to handle all 3 formats as captain: Test, One Day, International and T20. So yeah, Sammy cleared that up today at the press conference. Let's go to a break. More to come on the SportsMax Zone.